Matthew Owens placed more fault on the driver. Here's what Matthew Owens said yesterday.
I don't mean to come across as mean-spirited or dark-hearted or whatever, but I'm tired of hearing Graham Rahal say that he can't do anything else more, and that the guys have worked their tails off. Clearly they haven't. Clearly none of that is true. 2 years in a row that he's in this spot with a team like that and a name like that on the two names on the side of that team, Rahal and Letterman. It's inexcusable to be on this day, tomorrow, 2 years in a row. So stop trying to tell us how hard everyone's worked and that you can't do anything else more. Because Rinus VeeKay, in a much more underfunded team, just went from 29th to 11th. Stop telling me you can't do anymore. Yes, you can.
I agree.
Get it together.
I agree too.
2 years running is a joke. Absolute joke.
Either do the thing, make the freaking top 30 of a 34-car field, or get someone in the car that can.
Matthew Owens not holding back at all. Of course, he's from the Ultimate Sports Radio Network. I have to ask you, Ben, does he have a point about the missing link being the driver in this case, Graham Rahal?
If he's talking strictly about last year, then no. Last year, I don't think you can put fully on Graham Rahal. The entire team, I mean, Catherine Lake was the last one to get out of Last Row Shootout, and then the other three Rahal cars made up for 3 of the 4 spots that were in the Last Row Shootout. So last year, I don't put on Graham nearly as much as I do this year. Takuma Sato's in the Fast 12. Now, I know he's a 2-time winner of this race, but that shows that the team is ahead of where they were last year. There were unexplained team-wide issues and flaws. The comment in the chat says it all there. A team could simply follow Sato. Now, again, like I said, you don't win this race twice in 4 years by accident. Takuma Sato is one of the best we've seen in recent years at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Could easily be a 3-time winner of a race. He let 2012 get away from him. So I think that this year in particular, it does come off as, Matthew used the term mean-spirited here. It's tough because I feel a little bit for Graham Rahal. I understand that it's got to be an incredibly frustrating situation, but you definitely don't have the same excuse that you had last year, where it's clear that the team, just with all of their cars, is struggling for pace and for speed when you have your teammates ahead of you solidly in the field, one of them even in the Fast 12. And to be back in this position once again, I think this year more than last year, what Matthew's saying certainly holds true. And I think Graham Rahal, if he does in fact fail to qualify for the second year in a row, he's going to have some tough questions he's going to have to answer from the press, because this is just absolutely ridiculous. And for a team like this to be in this position 2 years in a row, it is inexcusable. And I think the driver's got to take a lot of that heat here this year when you have teammates that are solidly in the field.
Yeah, Ben, totally agree with you. I don't have much more to add there, but it's been interesting watching how Graham Rahal has been reacting, and this is why we love Indy 500 qualifying. We hope it remains the same for many, many years to come, and the excitement leading into Last Row Shootout, with today being bump day. You saw the emotion and the frustration on Graham Rahal's face yesterday, and especially today in the practice session for that Last Row Shootout. It seems like nothing is going wrong. I agree that you can't use the same excuse. So last year, I believe it's a mix of both driver and team, because as we saw in that practice session that just ended a short while ago, the team didn't tighten Graham Rahal's right rear. Could you imagine if that wheel had come loose during his qualifying run and end up shunting? That would have been really bad and game over for him if that just happened. And right there, we have Bruce 196 and in the chat room saying the same thing I just said. Just went out there and practiced with loose luck. No, dude, it's the team and the driver. Yeah, just what I was saying. I believe it's a group effort there, but I do believe that the driver does have to take some accountability here. And if Graham Rahal gets bumped a second year in a row, I agree with you, Ben. He's gonna have to answer a lot of tough questions. And for this team that's been having issues at this track, you think a year after this happened that they would really go to work over the offseason and figure something out. But when you look at this team, specifically the number 15 team, it really seems like they haven't really learned anything at all.
Well, just to follow up on that comment again, of course, it's not Graham's fault, but his team didn't tighten his wheel. But why is Graham in this position to begin with? If Graham had set a fast enough 4-lap average yesterday, they wouldn't have had to go out for practice for the Last Row Shootout to get ready to make their last chance qualifying run and avoid getting bumped. And you know, I mean, they wouldn't be in this position in the first place.
If this happens again, he fails to qualify, what does this do to his racing career and essentially his confidence?
Well, Joe, looking at the future of Graham Rahal's racing career, if he gets bumped again today, I think, you know, he'll have to do some serious soul searching. And I think he will. I think he was starting the process of doing some soul searching last year. I remember he was talking to the media like how he didn't know if he would return to RLL in 2024 or if he wanted to, you know, try to get a ride with some of the more competitive teams to see what he could do there. But I'm not really sure what Graham Rahal will do now. So I know some people have suggested if he does get bumped again, maybe he becomes an Indy only driver, you know, just like we've seen happen with Marco Andretti and Ryan Hunter-Reay. But look what's happened the last 2 years at Indy. If he wants to become an Indy only driver, you know, that might not be the best thing for him. But all in all, I think that he'll really have to do some soul searching whether or not he wants to continue racing full time in the IndyCar series, if he wants to drop to a part-time role and try to do Indy only or try to get his cars in order and go for a bigger team. I know he also mentioned like the bigger teams, like, you know, like the Penske's doing well and all of that. And I'm sure he wondered how he would do in one of those other top cars at the Speedway.
Yeah, well, there's always a cynical voice that says, well, look at the name on the car and the name on the team. Of course, Graham's going to have this ride as long as he wants it. But I think there are going to have to be some serious questions that are answered if he fails to get in the field here for the second year in a row. Now, you know, Kobe, you brought up the idea of, you know, doing what Marco Andretti does now. And again, Marco, you know, to Graham's credit, Graham has won more races than Marco did in his career. But aside from 2011, when, again, I think, you know, I don't know if you can put this entirely on Marco. It was a team-wide issue with, you know, Ryan Hunter-Reay failing to get in. Mike Conway, I think, was also one that failed to get in. There were questions as to whether Danica Patrick was going to be able to qualify. So Marco had to put in a last-ditch effort to get in 2011. But that was, again, a year where the entire team was looking for pace. This year isn't the case over at Rahal because of how far up the field Takuma Sato is. He's going to be going for the pole later today. So, you know, if Graham Rahal fails to get in, you can make that argument that, you know, maybe he takes a step back and, you know, takes on more of an ownership kind of role within the team or a driver advisor role or whatever that may be, and then becomes an Indy only driver. But, you know, the situation here would be very different because this is going to be the second year in a row now that he's in this position here and could potentially fail to qualify once again. And, you know, hopefully we don't see any, you know, driver injuries. I mean, again, it would be, you know, very ironic if he were to still race for the second year in a row. But of course, we hope and pray that everybody stays safe during the next weekend of practice and it doesn't come to that. But I don't know if Graham would be, you know, if teams would look at, you know, bringing in a wild card entry. You know, there are some former drivers. You know, J.R. Hildebrand is at the track there this weekend. I don't know if that would be maybe the driver that you'd rather have on standby than the guy that hasn't even been able to qualify for the last 2 years now. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Of course, you know, everybody's future is still, you know, pretty much up in the air this time of year. There's still a long season ahead of us, and we'll see. I would assume that Graham would at least finish out the year in the car this season. But yeah, I mean, this is the biggest race of the year. This is where, you know, the vast majority of your resources go for the entire season. If he can't get in later today, I think he's going to have to answer some serious questions.
And you remember last year, Ben, when Graham Rahal got back into the race with Jordan Rumble, his Indy 500 was over before it began. You remember they had the mechanical issue, had to go to the garage, and you know he came out, he came out laps down. So so he ended up running into issues there. So that Speedway has not been kind to him these last couple of years, and we'll see if they can try to crank out some speed in that car to try to get him into the show.